Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT-06, and BT-06 offers us a lot of new and powerful cards to not only build some new and exciting decks with, but to update and iterate on some current and existing decks. And today's deck that I'm going to be talking about is going to be the infamous Security Control deck. Yes, Security Control, unfortunately, is still a very powerful deck just because the whole concept of abusing your security to do very powerful things is still just that good of a concept to use, and we have a whole bunch of removal elements that we could be pairing up with our security to make sure that our security is always going to be a threat, and we have even more security Digimon to be playing around with to make our security, again, even more dangerous to be attacking into. Paired that up with lots of recovery abilities allows us to not only just keep our security as healthy as we possibly can make it, but as dangerous as we could possibly make it, as we're consistently putting threat after threat into our own security for the opponent to attack into, and to not only just try to ruin their day, but to make sure that they're not going to have any fun playing the game whatsoever, because we also have all of those removal type cards sitting in our hand as well to use to clear off the opponent's threats no matter what. And there's lots of different ways that you could build it, all depending on the color combinations and direction you want to take it. So without further ado, onto the deck profile. I'm going to be running one copy of Cupimon. So Cupimon is just my 5th Digitama. I actually do like having the 5th Digitama depending on how you want to build the deck. You could not even run a 5th Digitama if you don't feel like it's needed. I like what Cupimon's doing just because it's acting as a decent card draw engine for the deck, where it has a when attacking inheritable ability, where if you have 5 or more cards in your security, then you get to draw 1 card. So drawing a card in a style of deck like this is very important, just because you're not really going to be digivolving a whole lot. Most of the time you're just going to be playing 1 card and passing the turn, so having a way to consistently try to draw more cards is always really good. That being said, I am going to be running 4 copies of Upamon as my main Digitama, just because I do prioritize Upamon's ability and conditions on drawing a little bit more than Cupimon's. So Upamon's is another when attacking ability once per turn. If we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to draw 1 card. So we're not necessarily looking to be at a low security count, it just eventually happens just because they're going to have to attack into us in order to try to win the game. And we could use that to our benefit to allow us to draw cards off of Upamon. But onto the rookies, I'm only going to be running 4 copies of Salamon because it also recovers us a card and has good synergy with Upamon. So Salamon's recovery ability is an on-delete ability, where if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to recover 1. This combos really nicely with Upamon, so that way when we're swinging with Salamon with an Upamon underneath, we're guaranteed to draw a card and we're guaranteed to recover as long as Salamon gets deleted. So what I like to do is I'll just hide my Salamon in my raising, then once I'm at that 3 security threshold, then I'll just raise Salamon out, swing, get the draw off of Upamon, and hopefully Salamon gets deleted so I can recover 1. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Mekanorimon, so there is no better blocker in the game for this style of deck than Mekanorimon. Mekanorimon is just very powerful because, well, he has the nice blocking ability, he has a nice low play cost, and he has some relatively decent DP for his play cost, and on top of all of that, the most important thing about the card is his very last ability. We don't care about the fact that he can't attack, we just care about the fact that he is one of the best walls in the entire game, because he's basically a one-man wall. His last ability states that during the opponent's turn, when this Digimon deletes an opponent's Digimon by battle and he survives, then we get to unsuspend it. So that basically means anything that's weaker than Mechanorimon trying to attack will get deleted by Mechanorimon, and then Mechanorimon will be able to restand himself to block again. So if the opponent just has, let's just say, a field full of rookies, they essentially all can't attack unless they deal with Mechanorimon, just because Mechanorimon could actually block all of those rookies. So this is just one of the most powerful blockers that we could be working with outside of something like Shademon because it has a security ability, but I do value what Mechanorimon is doing something more than what Shademon is doing. But speaking of security Digimon, the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Cordramon. So I do understand not everyone will have access to the starter decks or want to use some of the starter deck cards, but I think that Cordramon, for what the deck is trying to do, is just that good. So Cordramon is a security Digimon, so when he's checked in our security, then we get to play him for free. He does do the security battle, so he could potentially delete the opponent's Digimon, which is already looking to be very, very strong. And on top of all of that, he has the nice on-play ability of allowing us to draw 2 cards. So even at worst, if we have to play him from our hand, we still get to play a Digimon on the field and to get the 2-card benefit that way. So he's still just a very strong card that has lots of high synergy with the deck. Next, onto the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of MagnaAngemon. So MagnaAngemon is still just one of the most important cards in the whole deck, just because he has the on-play ability of Recovery 1. So that's just generically decent because we just want to hard play the card to just recover 1. And he also has a nice inheritable ability where during your turn, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP for every 3 cards in the security that we have. Most of the time it's only going to be ever plus 1000, but there are those rare instances where it could be plus 2000. So this is still just a pretty decent inheritable ability to use if you are going to be using some other megas in the deck that you could pair up with him. But speaking of our megas, next I'm going to be running 4 copies of Magnadramon. So Magnadramon is one of the best megas that we have to be playing with it because it has the nice on-play ability where if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to recover 2. So because our security is just that threatening, most of the time, 1 check is going to always ruin the opponent. There are those instances where the RNG could fail us, and our security could not be very good, but that's why Recover 2 is just so important, so that way when we get low, we have an easy way to try to get as much recovery in the deck as we possibly can, so that way we could try to force our threats into our security, so that way we could try to control the board that way, on top of whatever else we have in our hand to try to deal and mitigate with what the opponent is trying to set up and do. So Magnadramon is really good for that, on top of the fact that it has a nice when attacking ability, where we get to play a yellow level 3 Digimon from our hand for free. So if we are playing any other yellow rookies, then this just allows us to play those yellow rookies for free, and free value is always good value. And then the last mega of the deck is going to be the only level 7 of the deck, and that's going to be 4 copies of Omnimon's Wart Defeat. So Omnimon's Wart Defeat is just that good of a card. This card is absolutely nuts and bonkers. We're not necessarily looking to evo it, but the fact that it has a lower evo cost than some of the other level 7s is just very powerful. And then on top of that, what we're really looking to gain is for its abilities. So it does have the security ability, so if this card is checked in the security, then we just get a free level 7 on the field. He doesn't do the security battle, but that's okay. A free level 7 is a free level 7, am I right? And then we unfortunately won't get the when Digivolving ability to delete one of the Tamers, but if we do play a couple of black megas, then we could set that up if we really wanted to. But the more important thing is his on-delete ability on top of the security ability, because his on-delete ability allows us to delete one of the opponent's Digimon, basically acting like pseudo-retaliation, but a little bit better. So he's just a very powerful Digimon to be working with for the deck, and is the main powerhouse backbone of what the deck is trying to do. Next, onto the options. There's going to be quite a lot of them, so I'm going to be running 2 copies of Ultimate Flare. So Ultimate Flare is still just that good of an option to be playing around with. The main ability to de-Digivolve 3 is pretty annoying because it could take a Mega and turn it back down into a Rookie. And then on top of that, we also get the added bonus where we then get to delete all of the opponent's Digimon in play with a play cost of 3 or less. So if they have just a field full of rookies, then this will delete all of the rookies, and more often than not, it'll delete the Mega that we just de-Digivolved, because it'll turn itself back into a rookie, and we could then delete said rookie. So this is just another really good card that's acting as some solid removal, not only for just the one big threat, but for a wide, smaller field as well. But we also have another board clear card in the form of Gwalt Schwarmer, just because Gwalt Schwarmer has the main ability to delete all Digimon in play with a play cost of 7 or less. So yes, this does affect our own Digimon, but hopefully we're going to be using this as like a big emergency button, where if Mechanorimon can't block them out, then we need to use Gwalt Schwarmer to delete everything on the field that's 7 or less, so that way we could then figure out a way to re-aggress and reassess the situation to get ourselves into a better board state. So Gwalt Schwarmer is really powerful for that, and it has the security ability of adding itself into our hand, so that way we could use Gwalt Schwarmer when we need to. Next, we have Iron Fisted Onslaught. So Iron Fisted Onslaught is another really powerful black removal option card because its main ability states we get to delete all of the opponents with the highest play cost. So if they have multiple Digimon out with the same play cost and they're all super high, then this card just deletes them all, but the fact that this will still delete potentially the strongest thing on their field is still just that good. So the fact that this could hit not only just the biggest thing on their field, but other Digimon that share a cost with it, it just makes this card very, very powerful. And then it has the nice security ability of activating the main effect, which is just, again, very powerful because if they just check it in the security, we get to use the card for free and remove cards off of their field. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Eden's Javelin. So Eden's Javelin is one of the best DP reduction removal cards that we have in the game because it has the nice main ability where we get to draw 1 card. So it's also acting as some card draw for us. And on top of that, we then get to reduce one of the opponent's Digimon's DP by 1,000 for each card that we have in our hand. So the more cards that we have in our hands, the stronger this card gets, but the fact that this card is still just that good means that we should run it because it also has the security ability of activating the main effect, so being able to use this card for free could still be very, very positive for us to try to handle a lot of the opponent's threats. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Tactical Retreat. So Tactical Retreat is a pretty decent card just because it allows us to reuse our security Digimon. So what its ability states is we get to place 1 Digimon on our field to the top of our security stack face down, and then trash all of its Digivolution sources if it had any. So the whole idea of this card is we're going to be using this with our security Digimon to reuse our security Digimon, keep our security as healthy as possible, and to make it so that the opponent really doesn't want to aggress or attack at all, because they're going to know what that threat is. So my favorite play is to try to swing with Quadramon, have Quadramon break a security, then Tactical Retreat it away, so that way I could use Quadramon to then try to draw more cards. Or if I use it with a Zwart Defeat, to just put a Zwart Defeat back into my security, I know he's eventually going to have to come out. So there is just a lot of very powerful things you could do in setup because of Tactical Retreat with security Digimon. Even if at worst you just need to recover 1, then throwing away one of your Digimon to essentially do that isn't necessarily the worst play if you need to do that in order to live. So it has some pretty decent utility, and on top of that, it also has the nice security ability where you get to recover 1. So it's basically acting as a holy wave in security, so when it's checked in the security, it basically replaces itself, and that's just really, really good, ensuring that our security is going to be as healthy as we can possibly make it. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Reinforced Memory Boost. So Reinforced Memory Boost is an absolutely insanely broken card for this deck to be using, just because it helps us to fix our memory because of the delay ability, and the delay ability gives us 3 memory over 2 memory for a lot of the other memory boosts, so it's just a more powerful memory boost. And then on top of that, the main ability that we're really looking to use out of this card is just that good, where we get to reveal the top 2 cards of our deck, then we get to place one of them into the top of our security face down and the other into our hand. So this just allows us to try to rig our security even more efficiently than we could before, and that's just really good because we get to force threats into our security, and we get to also add cards into our hand at the same time for using this card, with, like I said, the upside of it being a memory boost, allowing us to use the delay ability to gain memory at a later time, and it has a nice security ability of placing this into the battle area, so that way we could still, again, try to gain the memory at a later turn when we feel like we need it. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Wyvern's Breath as the last option of the deck. So Wyvern's Breath is, for all intents and purposes, Yellow's Gaia Force. It is the strongest and most powerful DP reduction we have on a single card, allowing us to minus 15,000 DP from one of the opponent's Digimon for the turn. So 15,000 is just that strong of a DP reduction because it could delete almost anything that we feel like we need it to delete. And on top of that, it has the nice security ability where we get to activate its main ability. So even checked in the security, it's still a huge threat and hindrance for the opponent because we're going to be deleting one of their Digimon through DP reduction. Next, onto the Tamers, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Izzy and Joe. So Izzy and Joe is a very powerful tamer for this deck to be running because it's a duo tamer, so we could use this in combination with any memory fixing tamer we feel like we need to, just because the duo tamer's passive ability of just gaining us 2 memory the start of our turn for the opponent having 2 or more Digimon is just that easy of a condition to fulfill, so there's a very high likelihood that the opponent's just going to have a couple of Digimon in play, and then we're just going to gain extra memory for them doing so. And then it also has a nice ability where during the opponent's turn, when one of our black Digimon is deleted, then we get to suspend this tamer to draw a card, acting as some more card draw for the deck because we are going to be running Mekanorimon, and if Mekanorimon is deleted, then we get the benefit of drawing a card off of his deletion with Izzy and Joe. So it's just a really good card to not only try to help us draw some cards every now and then, but also gain lots of memory to make sure that we can actually make some of our plays possible, because as you noticed, a lot of our cards have a very high memory count, so we need to some ways to shore up that weakness, and there's no better duo tamer that I could think of running outside of maybe a Matt and Ty than Izzy and Joe. And then the last card and last tamer of the deck is going to be 3 copies of TK. So this is just the memory fixing tamer slot of the deck. This could really be any memory fixer you feel like you find more important. I know a lot of people really like Izzy just because they could look at the top cards of their deck and try to rig their security based off of Izzy rearranging them, and then you can make some of your plays off of it. It can help fix your card draw. But I do also value TK because TK could also help with our overall consistency of the deck, where he's acting as our memory fixing tamer, so if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll just hard set it to 3, and B, his on-play ability allowing us to look at our security stack is giving us information on what's in our security. Then we get to pick a card from among our security and add it to our hand, so that's just, again, really good, and if that card just so happens to be yellow, then we get to recover 1, so it's just doing a lot that the deck already wants to be doing. We do have to be very careful, though, because we're not running just pure yellow cards, so if we do end up having to take a black card, then we will not be getting the recover 1. So we're just looking to try to fish out our yellow cards so that way we can recover 1, but at worst, having that security information is still very valuable, but this card does become a little bit worse the later the game goes, especially if we have very little to no security. And then as far as other cards that you could run in the deck, well, like I said before, there's just a lot that you could do with the deck just because the concept of recover and control are very, very easy concepts to be playing with for not only just the color combinations of yellow and black, but red and purple also have their own set of good control elements and tools that you could be using that flow and synergize nicely with the deck. But as far as other yellow cards you could run BushiAgumon. It's just another really easy yellow card to run to act as some extra aggression because of his rush ability. So we could use this in combination with Magnadramon, or if we do just gain enough memory, we could just hard slam him and not pass the turn because we have duo tamers and memory fixing tamers in the deck to try to put us at a high memory count. So it's not going to be that hard to be able to hard play Bushi on our own, even though we would prefer not to, and he's also just another rookie to use if we're trying to actually use our Digitamas. But if we're not trying to use our Digitamas and we just want another really powerful way of recovering 1, we could run Lucemon just because Lucemon's on-play recover 1 is just that important. We don't care about anything else about the card outside of the on-play ability, but him having 10,000 DP is also a nice bonus for him being a very powerful level 3 Digimon to be working with. Then if you do want some other ultimates to think about, you could run Mistymon as just another very powerful on-play do-something kind of a card. Its on-play ability allows us to target 2 of the opponent's Digimon and give it minus 3,000 DP for the turn. So if they are playing a couple of different rookies, then this could potentially delete said rookies, and that's just pretty decent to think about. You could also think about running Nightmon and Lord Nightmon in the deck as well, just because those 2 cards are very powerful and they do have some really good synergy with each other, on top of Lord Nightmon being able to play our rookies for free. So Mistymon, Nightmon, and Lord Nightmon are all just other very powerful options of other cards you could run in the deck. On top of that, you also have other very powerful megas to run in the form of Sakuyamon. So Sakuyamon's in the deck, not necessarily to allow us to aggress with our weaker Digimon, but it's in the deck just to try to stop the opponent's OTK strategies, just because it'll give the opponent's Digimon out of phrasing security attack -3, so if they are trying to hide a very powerful Digimon in their raising, then they're going to have to move it out and have it suffer security attack minus, so that way the following turn they could attack, and just leaving their Digimon vulnerable sitting on the field allows us to use our removal option cards to try to pick it off. So I think Cupimon is a very powerful card for this deck to be running. And if we do want some extra recovery and aggression, then Seraphimon is also another really good card to be using, just because his when Digivolving ability allows us to recover 1, so that's just a generic way to allow us to recover in the deck, and if we have 3 or more security, then he'll also have security attack +1, allowing us to actually try to think about aggressing onto the opponent's security. Then one of the other best yellow cards that we could be running is going to be Holy Wave, just because Holy Wave has the main ability of allowing us to recover 1, with the security ability activating its main to essentially allow us to recover 1, making sure that our security is going to be as healthy as we could possibly make it. And if you do want to run an additional level 7 to Digivolve on top of any of the yellow level 6s we're going to be playing, you could run Chaosmon Folder Arm as just some additional control. Then there are a couple of really decent black megas that we could think about using if we do want to actually try to Digivolve and use Omnimon Zwart Defeat. So Craniumon is just a very annoying card just because he can't be deleted by card effects for all of our blockers, so this could protect him, this could protect our Mechanorimon, and that's pretty important because he's also a blocker that also is a very strong mega in his own right, so he could also act as a really decent wall against the opponent. And then you also have Mechanorimon to think about running, just because Mechanorimon, again, is another blocker with a very powerful on-play ability of D-Digivolve 2, and that could be pretty obnoxious and annoying for the opponent to deal with. And then, like I said, another tamer that you could run is going to be Izzy, so if you don't like what TK's doing, then Izzy is doing something very similar, being a memory-fixing tamer, and then on top of which, his on-play ability actually can make him even more efficient than TK, where we get to look at the top 3 cards of our deck, and if all of them are black, then we get to gain 1 memory, essentially making him 3 instead of 4, so we are running a decent number of black cards, so this actually could happen. And then on top of that, we get to rearrange them in any order, so that way we have that information knowing what we're going to be drawing and what we want to try to force into our security based on our recovery ability. So this is just another really good card to consider running for the deck. And then as some purple cards that you could think about running, we have Ornismon. So Ornismon is another card that just allows us to use a very powerful on-play ability with a security attack +1 to try to actually deal damage to the opponent and close out the game that way. So his on-play ability states that we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon that's level 5 or lower. So it's just acting, again, as some more removal on a purple body that we want to hard play and not Digivolve into, with a security attack plus to actually deal damage. So it's doing a lot of what the deck wants to be doing. And then we even have that Bellastarmon to consider playing, just because Bellastarmon is another mega that we could hard play, and she even can make herself cheaper, so that way she's more efficient Digimon to hard play for every option and 3 Musketeer in our trash. The options do have to have a memory cost of 7 in order for her reduction ability to happen, but the fact that she could reduce her play cost is very, very important, and the fact that her on-play ability allows us to pick an option that costs 7 from our trash, add it to our hand, and then use an option that costs 7 is just very, very powerful, because we could reuse some of our options that were checked in the security, or reuse options that we hard played. So Bellastarmon is another very powerful and fantastic card for this deck to be using. And then we even have another really powerful option to be using with her in the form of Fly Bullet, acting as, again, some more removal cards to be using with the deck. So it allows us to delete one of the opponent's level 6 or lower Digimon, and that's just very powerful. You could also consider running Trump Sword, because it also has a similar style of ability. So you do have options on, well, what options you want to be using with the deck. And then if you wanted to, you could even take the deck in a red direction and add some red in it. So if you want it, you could actually think about using the Warp Guilmon. The opponent having a level 6 Digimon isn't going to be the hardest thing in the world for them to do, because we're going to be giving them a decent amount of memory half the time. So Guilmon is just a really good card to allow us to set up a warp and gain some benefit for deleting the opponent's Digimon when we are in our Gallantmon. So that way we could even draw cards for basically doing what the deck wants to do, which is delete the opponent's Digimon. And then we do have the Gallantmon from BT-02 to be using as the best Gallantmon to warp into, just because we could potentially delete one of the opponent's Digimon that's 6000 DP or less with a red Tamer on our field, and we could use his when attacking ability to just straight up burn the opponent's security if they have enough cards in their trash, and that's just very powerful because that allows us to actually try to aggress onto the opponent, even safer than some of our other megas. And then we could even use red eggs on top of that, so that way we have red eggs to think about using to just try to make our mega as strong as it possibly can be. Then we also do have a security Digimon from the red starter deck in the form of GeoGreymon acting as some more removal, where he does have the security ability and he has the on-play ability to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 4000 DP or less. And then we have, to complement that, a slew of different red removal option cards. Plasma Snake deletes 13 or more. Trident Revolver lets us play our Tamers for free and delete 6000 or less. Transcendent Sword allows us to delete 11,000 or less, and if we have our Omnimon on the field, then it's 15,000 or less instead. Again, really powerful levels of removal. Red Reamer allows us to delete 6,000 or less for costing 4, which is pretty efficient, and if the opponent has the 3 or more Digimon in play, then it's 13,000 or less instead. Happy Bullet Showering allows us to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP, so if any Digimon are tied for the lowest DP, it'll just delete all of them regardless, so just, again, more removal. And it's a 3 Musketeers option for Bellastarmon if you're choosing to go that direction. Then we have Gaia Force, one of the best red removal options in the game, if not the best red removal option in the game. And then we even have Atomic Blaster, again, just another very powerful red removal option to deal with multiple Digimon, or one Digimon that has 8,000 DP or less. Red just has lots of good removal as a whole. Then if we do want to run other Duo Tamers and other kinds of cards and synergies, then Sora and Joe is also one of the better Duo Tamers we could think about, and we could even pair this up with some Kaiser Nail play, just because Kaiser Nail allowing us to separate some of our Digimon could allow us to reuse some of their on-play abilities. And then the other best Duo Tamer we have to work with is going to be Matt and Tai to try to give our Omnimon Zwart Defeat an extra security check, making him deal even more damage than he could before. But yeah, for the most part, this is just what security control is going to be looking like as a solid core or shell. We're just, again, trying to use very powerful cards to remove the opponent's Digimon off the field and try to recover as often as we possibly can, so that way we can keep our security as healthy and full of potential threats as we possibly can. Trying to be one of the more annoying decks acting as one of the best control decks in the game. So, like I said, there's just a whole bunch of different ways you could take the deck and spin the deck. So, in this kind of a build, I actually should be running Izzy instead of TK because I do have that 5th Digitama with only 4 rookies. So, it actually does allow me to run all black Tamers, and I'm never going to be in fear of losing a yellow source to use my yellow options. So, that just goes to show you that there's still just optimization and customization to be had even with what I currently have built. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.